Death is a topic that has fascinated and frightened humans since the beginning of time. The mystery of what happens when we die has inspired countless stories, myths, and legends across different cultures and religions. From the concept of reincarnation to the belief in heaven and hell, people have tried to understand what happens to our consciousness and soul when we die. In this video, we will explore some of the theories and beliefs about what happens when we die from a scientific perspective as well as a philosophical perspective. From a scientific perspective, death is a permanent cessation of all biological functions that sustain a living organism. When our heart stops beating, our brain cells start to die due to the lack of oxygen, and our body undergoes a series of changes that lead to decay and decomposition. This process is irreversible, and there is no scientific evidence that supports the existence of an afterlife or a supernatural realm where our consciousness or soul can survive after death. However, science has provided some insights into what happens to our body after we die. One of the most significant discoveries in this field is the phenomenon of near-death experiences, which have been reported by many people who have been clinically dead and then revived. Near-death experiences typically involve a range of experiences such as a sense of leaving the body, moving through a tunnel, encountering a bright light, meeting deceased loved ones or spiritual beings, and feeling a sense of peace and euphoria. While near-death experiences are still not fully understood, some of the scientists have proposed that they may be caused by a combination of psychological and physiological factors, such as the release of endorphins, the lack of oxygen in the brain, and the activation of certain brain regions that are associated with consciousness and memory. However, skeptics argue that near-death experiences may be a result of hallucinations, delusions, or false memories, and that they do not provide any evidence for an afterlife or a supernatural realm. Philosophers, on the other hand, have been grappling with the concept of death for centuries, and they have developed various theories and arguments about what happens when we die. One of the most influential philosophical theories about death is the dualistic view, which posits that the body and the mind are two separate entities that can exist independently of each other. What does that mean? According to this view, when we die, our body decomposes, but our mind or soul survives and continues to exist in some form. This view is often associated with religious beliefs about the afterlife, such as the concept of reincarnation or the idea of a judgment day where our soul is judged based on our deeds and sent to either heaven or hell. However, the dualistic view has been challenged by other philosophers who argue that our mind and the soul is not a separate entity, but rather a product of the brain and its function. From the materialistic perspective, when we die, our body decomposes into its basic elements. This view is often associated with the atheistic or agnostic beliefs that do not posit the existence of a supernatural realm or an afterlife. Now, looking at the cultural view of death, apart from the scientific and philosophical views, the concept of death is also shaped by the cultural beliefs and practices. Different cultures have developed their own rituals, customs, and traditions to deal with death and to honor the deceased. Now let's take, for example, in some cultures, death is seen as a natural part of life, and people must celebrate the life of the deceased with feasts, dances, and music. In other cultures, death is seen as a tragic event, and people may mourn the loss of their loved ones with rituals of grief and mourning. Moreover, different cultures have different beliefs about the afterlife and the fate of the soul after death. For instance, in ancient Egypt, now it was a culture that believed that the soul would pass through different stages of judgment and purification before entering the afterlife, where it would reside in the field of reeds of paradise for righteousness. Similarly, in Hinduism, the concept of reincarnation plays a central role in the belief about what happens after death. It is believed that the soul, or Atman, will be reborn into the body of another according to its karma or deeds in the previous life. In Christianity, the belief in heaven and hell is a central tenet of the faith. It is believed that after death, the soul will be judged by God and sent to either heaven or hell, a place of eternal joy or a place of eternal suffering and damnation. Basically, when it comes to what happens to you after death, the question of life and death, the question continues to fascinate and puzzle everyone. While science has provided some insights into what happens to our body after we die, the question of what happens to our consciousness or soul remains a matter of philosophical and cultural debate. Whether we believe in an afterlife or not, death is an inevitable part of life, and it is up to us to make the most of the time we have and to leave a positive legacy for future generations. Finally, I'm going to ask you, what is your own perception about death? And what do you think is going to happen after you die? Do you have the cultural belief, or is your belief guided by religion? Whichever one that you believe in, please put it down in the comment section below. And do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button so that you can keep getting much more cool, great, and exciting content that is just there to entertain you.